Good evening and welcome to another episode of Shadows and Lights with the hostess with the mostest and me. It is
I'll
what
do
it
a bit. I'll do a bit of sharing because we haven't got nobody yet.
is. Okay,
There, I shall do this now.
and I'll do a little bit of muttering.
You did some mutterings.
Yes, which is another witty term,
Oh yeah,
ladies and gentlemen. Yes, mutterings.
mutterings.
So yeah, I'm probably talking to myself, but it doesn't matter.
No, you're not.
No.
Now we have Richard Case. Hello, Richard.
Evening. Tonight's subject is familiars. Very controversial to some people. To us, it's just another subject that's I've not seen anybody cover before, so maybe it's the first. Who knows? I've not been at it that long as far as podcasting goes, but we're doing okay.
We're doing all right.
We're doing all right. So, familiars, they're classed as supernatural beings.
Oh, we'll see you in. Hang on. See you on Martin. Hello.
Good evening.
Here we have
Eric.
Hello, Eric.
Eric.
And our little Rita. Hello, Rita.
Good evening, Rita. Nice to see you. Yeah, so they classed as supernatural beings in some quarters, and in other quarters, they are familiar beings, mainly animals, but there is other creatures in there, some of them supernatural, but it could be anything, basically anything could be a familiar. It depends on the attachment that's been given or conjured, because there is a few different ways of forming a familiar. This is in witchcraft, because there is also different types of familiar, which we'll go into it in a little bit. We've covered part of that subject, but not the familiar side. So that'll be interesting in a little while. Does anybody understand what a familiar is? Please let me know. See, I've got a lot of this one written down because I'm not exactly versed in it, as I say. So please excuse the stuttering and the muttering.
The stuttering.
And the muttering. Yeah, I'm struggling to see the damn thing in this light. Let me put my big light on. I'm going to have to put the big light on.
Oh, we've got a message from Ian. He's bobbing on.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good.
In a bit, not yet.
Well, just join us. You've got the link there.
Yeah. We've got Robert. Hello, Robert.
Evening, Robert. Yes. Just
Richard understands, yeah, what familiars
are. The term familiars, as I say, it's supernatural beings that serve as companions. I can't even read my own writing. That's disgusting.
Oh, it's getting bad.
Oh, what the hell have I put there? Oh, never mind.
It's familiar that, like I said, they serve as physical manifestations of witches. You use them to, animals have unutterable emotions, extreme rage, anger, malice, envy, hatred, and in some cases, love. I don't think that's right, do you? Well, it's a lot of it. It is. I mean, right,
yeah, like Eric's just said there, he considers his cat as a familiar.
Yeah.
The only thing, I'm just opening my picture up there. The only thing I want to say for that is, do you class yourself Eric, as a witch or a warlock. There is other what's the word? Practitioners. That's a modern expression.
Practitioners, yeah.
But
Actually,
mainly witches. Witches are the ones that summon and create familiars to do their bidding, basically. And as they're what's the word? They basically help them to be struggling on tonight. They protect them. That's it. They are their protectors. That's the word.
Yeah. They help them practice with the practice of magic, divination, and spiritual insight in it as well. Yeah, and obviously protect.
They kept as their attendants. And they've given a small amount of power in return. Maybe the main thing that they perceive to receive is longevity. So it, but they don't get a lot from it. They are basically slaves to the host.
That's what they were. Yeah, they bonded in slavery, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the actual word familiar was only introduced in England and Scotland in 1565. That's when the word entered.
Yes, and basically
before that.
Yeah, basically faded away in the 1700s. So as far as longevity in that respect goes, it wasn't very long. It's quite fleeting, really. And we went on to use other words. Yeah. But there is still circles, still certain witch circles, different families, shall we say, of witches that still use that term. Unfortunately, it became well known for the dark side of the practice. So most witches and practitioners that had familiars.
Eric says, "Prize, my."
Cheers, Eric. Love you.
Got William. Greetings from the historic world.
Esoteric world, yeah. Good evening.
And Richard Case, is imp like a familiar? Yeah, it was. It was supposed to be, yeah.
It is, yeah. They're the supernatural side of it. So there was a hell of a lot of animal familiars and insects, and certain at times there were also plants and trees. But for the main part, on the dark side, yes, imps and the light were also familiars, or perceived to be. We can only surmise, can't we? We can't say for definite until somebody comes along and says, "Look, here's my slave." But
Robert thinks Eric is just so weird.
But yeah, what's wrong with being weird? I mean, we're all weird, really, in this field.
Rich just says, "Thank you. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating subject. It's
different, like I've said, and it's something that not a lot of people have covered." I'll just run through a few of the known familiars. You've got dogs. Black cat is the most common. It's the most mentioned. But there's also rats, toads there. That's another well-used familiar. They are used for protection, guidance, and healing. Also used to keep in divination.
Yeah.
Which we talked about last week. That was it last week or what it week before? It was week before, wasn't it? My God. Yeah, divination.
Too quick.
Yeah. And it just shows how things interconnect in paranormal field.
Yeah.
And how much they overlap. And divination, yeah, familiars were used for that, most definitely. I'm not mentioning that just yet. We'll come into that in a bit.
Yeah, and apparently they have to be bonded to a person magically, given to a witch magically, inherited from another witch, or basically by the devil.
Which is hence is the reason why it's known as the dark arts. It's connected to the dark arts, which it's not strictly true. That was only one facet to it, weren't it? If you were bequeathed by a demon or a devil or an entity, as you say, you're also bequeathed it by other witches. So
Yeah.
probably one of your
relatives could have passed it to you.
No, coven.
Coven, yeah.
They hold certain beings in different covens with higher regard than others. So just as an example, one coven could use toads. That's their familiars, and they'll all use toads of varying kinds. Good evening.
Good evening.
And then another coven would use black cats, just as an example. So this is where they all come from. That's why there's such a variety.
I believe it.
So, yeah, and the subject and term familiar, it's gone underground since 1700s, basically. There will be still some covens out there, but they're very, very secretive. Similar to, I can't say it, can I? Can't, because it's secrets. It's secrets.
Secrets, yeah.
Yeah.
What do they call them nowadays? Masons and the like. See, they all have the rituals, and some of them, believe it or not, their logos, if you look at the logos, some of the symbols might not make sense to everybody, but they're familiars. So they believe that they can gain some sort of prosperity from aligning themselves with such beings. Now
we've got some comments to catch up on, so we'll have to do a few of these.
Come on then, chuck them in.
Eric says he knows he's weird. William, it would be interesting to see what people's interpretation of what a familiar actually is on here. Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Richard says weirdest god he is.
Yeah.
Richard, I saw a toad in a graveyard in Devon. It was eerie to seeing it.
Yeah, they do turn up in weird places, don't they? Toads.
Robert, if I were all the same, life would be. But if we were all the same, life would be boring. Yeah, it would.
Exactly. Yeah.
Eric Williams Alpha, I actually don't know. William Eric Thompson, a lot of people don't. They have to look it up.
Yeah, exactly. But you can scry for it as well.
Robert says, "Hi, Ian." Rita says, "I'm
Rita."
And Richard, if I disappear, I will watch later. I'm caring for Sarah. Okay, Richard.
No problems. Yeah, it's something that you can scry for. As I said, the term and the practice has gone out of fashion, or underground, shall we say. It's gone underground. So, from what I've been able to surface, you can scry for a familiar, you can spellcast for a familiar, or you can inherit it. The practice still exists. It's just not spoke about because, again, the dark arts aren't practiced, or they don't want to be seen to be practiced anymore because everything's sweetness and light, which we all know it's not, but it has to be seen. You can talk about the light, but you can't talk about the dark. You've got to be knowledgeable, though. You've got to be aware of it. And for me, if you don't learn it, then you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
Different matter to use it, or be part of it in in that form. But you should really, anybody that wants to be really knowledgeable about paranormal and witchcraft and every facet of it, learn it, because then you can guard against it.
Yeah, and learn the history as well.
Yes, exactly.
You have to know,
So
you have to know what came before.
yeah, this is why we're doing all the subjects that we're doing, because again, not a lot of people are going to have heard of. Well, they'll have heard of it, but they'll have no knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah.
They might not have a lot after our podcast, but at least they'll have some.
Yeah.
You would-
I always have people I reach out to if I need to know something on a particular topic that I haven't looked into. And believe it or not, they do come up.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, I sent you one before. That's good of you. Well,
yeah.
there were also said to be shapeshifters that could change from animal form to human. And
Right. Well, and there is two in particular, two animal familiars that are the third and fourth most common, and they are connected to shapeshifting. Can you either of you or anybody tell me what they are? They are really, when you think logically, self-explanatory, but
Is one a cat?
no, actually not. No.
No, but that's
is one a crow?
What?
Is one a crow?
A
raven. Crow or a raven?
No, they're just symbols. And they are familiars, but they're not the most common, believe it or not, as shapeshifters we're talking here. So there's two that are known shapeshifters, and it's one of the facets that they use.
No, I don't know. You'll have to tell us.
Okay, I'm looking at it from a different angle here. Are we talking bat?
Correct, that's one.
A Betty? It's not a wolf, is it?
No, that's North American Indians. They've got different views. They were heavily into animal spirit, but Europe-wise, no, it's different, and they use them differently as well. But yeah, bats is number 3. And if you think about their counterpart, who use them more than any as familiars, it's number 1 on one. Yeah.
Okay, am I going for owl?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, Eric said you should start writing books. I told him that, Eric, and he said, "No, I don't do that. Don't do it."
Eric. I'm wasted. But yeah, so bats and owls. Now, owls, they err on the side of witches and they're familiars and shapeshifting. But bats is something else I'm going to go into in a roughly about 10 minutes time, hopefully. I'm trying to spin the subject out, as you can tell. So, but bats are another one. Yeah, I can mention it, and
it's
then
probably quite connected to why I said bat in the first place when I looked at it from a different perspective.
Exactly, which is
vampires.
Correct. We've had this subject. We've talked about this subject, but not from this perspective.
Yeah.
Which it's actually common sense, and it's something that's widely accepted and known. And this is the fear of human beings, of vampires. But anyway, you see, I started there, didn't I? And I've got to stop. But yeah, the term familiar has gone underground because of its dark connections. But in this country, the belief still exists quite a lot, like certain places for vampires. But in this country, the belief of familiars is still quite strong in a certain area of England. Any idea?
Well, it's quite common down here.
Well, it's between us, but let's put it that way. It is between us. And I'm in Yorkshire, so
Shall we poke him with a stick here?
Yeah. I've got some big sticks out there. I've just been cutting up wood, so
we're doing what we're doing best here because we're bouncing off each other. That's the good thing. Seeing as the audience aren't coming up with much. But have we got any comments? We'll give them some.
No.
No comments. Right. So it's still prevalent in Cambridgeshire and the Fenlands. Which
interesting. Yeah.
Which
there we go with the puns.
They still have a big belief in witches in that area, in Fenlands and what have you. There is other areas in country, but it prevails there. The some of the rituals that they do and some of the fairs that they have, like festivals and harvest festivals and things like that.
Yeah.
Witches are actually incorporated into a lot of what they do, which I found fascinating because they've omitted them in a lot of other ceremonies and a lot of other places, and put Morris dancers in, for example. But when you work out what Morris dancers actually were, they were performing spring rituals. That's what the performance was originally. It's just become, part of culture. So it's fascinating. I find it fascinating anyway. I'm going to have to answer, unless you've got something to add, Netta or Ian.
Yeah, it was interesting. What is interesting is it was said to be malevolent when used by a witch, but when working with cunning folk, benevolent they were described as more like fairies.
Yeah. So to enlighten and expand on that, they are a tool.
Yeah.
So of course you get light and dark. So the dark side are the familiars of supernatural origin, elves, imps, and the like. The healing side of it and the good side of it were familiars from the natural world, different types of animals, for example. Some of them are not all that brilliant, like snakes, and they're borderline because they come under serpent. If you look at how people described snakes and the like, they weren't called snakes, they were called serpents. So they were bordering dark. And you can understand why, because most places in Europe and further afield, a lot of your serpents are poisonous.
Yeah.
We are lucky in this country that we've only really got one, and that only delivers a load similar to a bee sting, and that's adder. So we're lucky. We are lucky. And Ireland has got none.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that. You wouldn't get any with that familiar over there, would you?
No, exactly. So it's fascinating what people have got, what witches do use, and this is why different covens, I suppose, conjured from what they had available. What's that one?
Brilliant. Opinionate comment. A familiar is, and I will use the basic meaning of social media, is usually an animal of any sort. It can be any such animal which is considered sacred, but not that is specially chosen for that individual to work with spiritually. The dictionary uses the word demon to explain the word familiar, and this is not always the case. Familiar can mean a friend, which is applicable to the witch and known they associate with black cats, elves, and I'll have to go to her to read the rest of that, I think.
Yeah, which is basically what I was mentioning.
Yeah.
I can't get the rest of it up.
The word demon gets used too often.
Yeah.
It does
Hello,
But
Joanne.
it's a throwback. Hey, John. It's a throwback because it's a 200-year window.
Yeah.
You don't hear it a lot unless people are trying to be controversial these days. So if they want to get a reaction, people will use the word demon and devil.
Yeah.
We are learning, though. Again, it's been a short window because we are learning that it's not applicable most of the time. It can be explained away from other entities, as i.e., poltergeist, like I said. That's another one that we touched on. That poltergeist is misunderstood. People think it's a dark entity, and it's not. It's just it's a word explaining noisy ghost.
Yeah.
When you look at its purest meaning, so it's ignorant. Can I use that word? It's ignorant practitioners. It's ignorant people that's playing in the field, shall we say, rather than
It's
learning.
just certain headings being used for
Yeah.
when
The
they're
various
not
reasons.
fact. You know, when you don't look for the proper answer. As you say,
Exactly.
poltergeists, demons, they can be confused, angry, not. They've spent years trying to get somebody to answer them and haven't had any response. So it's all it takes is them to get angry about the situation they're in, and there you go. But automatically, you get people saying, "Oh, it's a demon." No,
Yeah. No.
it's
Exactly.
just someone that's highly angry
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
or confused, and the same.
I mean, they might go in there, look, shouting out for demons and all. And that spirit might think, well, I'll tell you what, if it gets me noticed, I'll be a demon.
Well, I'm not going to mention any names, but certain people go in and shout, they go, "Oh, I got the word demon through the spirit box." They're probably referring to you by the way you're behaving,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than them saying they are one. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not the nature of a demon to identify itself.
Well, exactly. I mean, the statement in itself, "Oh, you naughty devil," it's bandied a lot. It's bandied and used incorrectly for me. So, I mean, when you say it in that context, "Oh, you naughty devil," that's a bit tongue in cheek, isn't it? It's not malevolent at all in that statement. It just means you're mischievous.
And on the other side of it as well, if you go into a place and what's in there doesn't want you there, it could say it's a demon just to scare you out. I mean,
Yeah, anything's possible. Anything's possible.
it's
Anywho,
Came across one which it's a dog, and it's, well, the word in itself, Canis familiaris.
yeah. I mean, if you look at its truest form word wise, there, it's canine. So meat eater.
There is a case actually from Prince Rupert's dog, it's called. During the Civil War, the royalist general had a habit of taking his dog named Boy along to battles with the dog. And the dog was greatly feared amongst the parliamentarian forces and said to have supernatural powers. At the end of the war, it was shot with a silver bullet.
Yeah, and I've heard other accounts of things like this happening simply because, in fact, there's a film. I can't remember what film it were now. I think it was a Civil War film. And the local dogs that had lost their homes, they become homeless, started to make their own packs, like wolves. So, of course, because they were fearing humans, like your wolves would, they keep the distance and prey on animals that they've always preyed on. These dog packs, if they came across dead humans, they'd eat them. It's good fodder. It's good fodder. And if you're witnessing that, dogs tearing a person to bits, then it's gonna get talked about, isn't it? Evening, Ben. So yeah, there's loads and loads of accounts, and they get banded and get changed, just like Chinese whispers. We've mentioned this before, but sticking with the familiar theme, familiars in vampirism. What is a vampire's familiar?
A bat, of course.
A what?
A bat.
Actually, not necessarily. That is
Yes.
the shifting side of the vampire.
Yeah.
A bat familiar
Human, isn't it?
is the,
Yeah,
it's the human. Yes,
Tool.
it's the
It's
human.
basically a slave, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. The human that is a familiar to a vampire is someone that serves them. They're fed upon in return for, again, longevity, which is the main thing that they get, in the hope that they will be turned and become a vampire themselves. But vampires were crafty, and they'd promised them the earth, but wouldn't give it them. They would just be thirsty devils, basically, and used as food.
Yeah.
And still are to this day, apparently. So that is the main form of familiars to date, although they don't use the word a lot. I can't think of the word that they actually use for them now, but there is a word that that suggests that these humans are subservient to vampires. In the old days, they would have been called familiars. It's that side of it, to me, is where it gets interesting, because these are human beings, but they're given powers, so they can become shapeshifters. And the only way that they will be seen is like vampires is like bats. So everybody thinks that these familiars are vampires, and they're not. It's their servants. They just haven't been turned. They haven't got the thirst for blood. What's that?
Francis, unfortunately, that comes from the book Ancient Stories Tell that they have no human slaves.
Yeah, but they have. Obviously, they have. All modern accounts suggest that, and this is how they've got round the need to kill. Because in history, vampires were always depicted as bloodthirsty killers, and in reality, no, they were more like leeches. Always were. In most of your films, you will see a familiar, someone that the vampire is feeding from, somebody that will tend their coffin and their dormant state through day and protect them, to be given powers at night. So, yeah, it's I find that fascinating. And again, yeah, there's loads of different versions of vampire films and this and that too, but that's the basic. In 90% of decent depictions of vampires, film-wise, they always have familiars. What weren't it? No, that was Ego or Frankenstein's familiar.
Eagle,
Yeah, that was Frankenstein's familiar. But it's the same story again. Someone being subservient to another. Vlad had a subservient. He had a familiar. If you look at the account, it was someone that wanted to share his power, share longevity by serving him. And he tried to resist, and he shunned him for a long time, until the deed was done and he drank blood and he became a vampire in his own right. Apparently, that's the story, isn't it? So, but he tried to resist it. He tried to resist it at first. I think it's that account is more interesting to me personally than a lot of these witchy accounts and what have you. But again, is there any equivalent really in witchcraft? Is there any witches that stand out that had a familiar that's well documented? There isn't really, is there? Unlike, I mean, Dracula's it's a modern word, it's a modern term, it's a modern name, but it's been banded and used all over the place. The original name was Vlad, weren't it? He was the original, apparently, that was turned by an ancient vampire that dwelled in a cave. That name, it escapes me. The name was never used for me. I've not heard the name. It could be interesting to find that name out, wouldn't it?
The only other main vampire I've ever heard of is Nosferatu.
Correct, yeah. But I think that's how can I put it? Is that just a translation, or is it a name in its own right? Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. I'm glad you said that one. And because I believe Nosferatu was the first vampire film
Yeah.
to come out. It was black and white era in 1920s.
Yeah, it was
That
that thing with the two weird teeth, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Bald thing with two teeth.
Yeah, stalking downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually know the bloke who was Nosferatu for a TV ad years ago. So doing exactly that.
Robert says, would you call a werewolf a familiar?
Interesting
It's a
thought.
shapeshifter. It is a shapeshifter. So I would say that, yeah, it probably comes under dog heading originally. But things become powerful in their own right. And probably yes, they've become beings in their own right. But originally, probably they were familiars.
Ben says, not a frauto is a Latin slang for unclean one. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
It does make some sense, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I come across for like which is familiars, and that was by what Matthew Hopkins give out in names of. He actually named a few. There was Pie Wacket,
Yeah,
Grizzle Greedy Guts, Vinegar Tom,
yeah,
Elmanza, and Pecking the Crown.
yeah. They are all familiar names, and there is more. There's quite a few more that came. They're just headings, though. Basically, they're not actual one creature. They're a heading of a whole bunch of them. Let's say.
And said, sorry, we're talking about myths or historical. Both, real.
Both really,
Yeah,
yeah.
both. I mean,
Yeah, it's both. It's everything.
yeah, they all get intertwined, don't they?
Yeah,
and this is where, yeah, fact meets fiction.
fiction, yeah. He says, sorry if I sound like I'm being rude. I don't intend to be.
No,
You're
no,
all right,
it's
Ben. It's good to have someone with your knowledge on here.
fine. Yeah, I mean, look at this conversation about what was it other week about vampires?
Yeah.
It weren't until I actually looked into it. I thought the majority of vampire were myth, but it's actually documented all over the world. One of the first cases, as I mentioned, was from Russia. It was an annex. Was it Russia or Germany? I can't remember. It was an annexed country when they were expanding the borders, and there was a case of this so-called entity roaming at night, causing mischief. I mean, it's interesting how language gets changed, or the words are very carefully chosen, because you wouldn't want it to cause hysteria, which it did in some cases, and this one it did. This entity was awakening at night and causing havoc and wreaking havoc in this village.
Yeah,
I'm just amazed at the fact there's something lurking around Russia that's drinking something except vodka.
Probably don't anymore. But
Ben says, first familiar were called Undug. Ben.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
word Sumerian spirits of the sand in the Middle East. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah, some of the first accounts were from, I mentioned it, didn't I? Desert region.
Yeah.
Cliff Caves is where they're said to dwell. And I can't remember which culture it were now, but that goes back. That's second century, I think, first accounts. So they
Yeah.
do go back. They have got some
Yeah, go
history.
way back.
Yeah, they have got history. But the far and few between, and they do seem to move. There's correlation between countries. They go from one country, and then the language is changed, and then it goes to another country, and the language is changed. There's only certain words that seem to persist as a heading for subject. So piecing it together, it's a nightmare. Are they the same entities? Because the translation gets lost sometimes, doesn't it? Like Dogman and Werewolf. Are they the same entity? I reckon they are, really. But
Yeah,
it's just
possibly,
like,
yeah.
it's just like blacks and whites. Do we look the same? If we're honest, no. Subcultures don't, do they? I mean, same with Chinese and Asian. We all have a slightly different look. We're all human, but we look slightly different. Who's to say that the same doesn't happen with every other animal? So
Yeah.
when you say dogman, yeah, they might look like a dog in one region, and they may look more like a wolf in another region. Are they the same? Are they related? I believe they are.
Oh, we have a spammer in. So we'll say tatty bye to you.
But what?
Tatty bye. Don't
Why?
do
What?
don't do scammers, do we?
Spamming.
No.
No, so if she arrested anyone, just ignore it.
I didn't see what it was. So.
She was asking people for readings to get in touch with her
All right.
and get rid.
Right.
Ben says, what is now called a Jordan is what you're thinking of when you say cave dwellers.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember where it were. Is it Bedouin?
Bedouin, yeah.
I know it goes back quite a way. It is a culture. It still exists today in a totally different guise, but people evolve, don't they? Cultures evolve.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it does, because it like the word like you've got these now, and in the 20th century, familiar changed totally, and they were identified as nidgets, which were creepy crawly things that witches kept all over them.
yeah.
So there's a massive bounce and change to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit.
Exactly. But familiars are
a bit scratchy.
Familiars can be insects, as I mentioned. Yeah. It's everything from the ground up, basically, has been used because they are conjured.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To serve. So
that's what magicians did, didn't it? With their familiars, they conjured them when they needed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a name for them as well. I think they were called dormants or something similar to that.
See you later, Ben.
Okay, Ben. Nice to see you. So, yeah, that's the most interesting side of it to me, is the vampire one. But it's an account that everybody knows, everybody's familiar with.
Here we go.
Oh, no.
What's this? Dad joke night?
Yeah. But with witches, not a lot of people have got a lot of knowledge about them. It's the quickest growing culture at the moment, there is more witches now than there is ever been, apparently.
Yeah.
How many of them are true witches and practitioners and alchemists is anybody's actual guess. But it is the biggest growing. But have they got familiars anymore? Do they use familiars anymore? I'd love to hear from a witch that has got one or uses one, because it's gone underground. As I say, it's something that's not used anymore, in my opinion.
I've read
Only my
a
opinion.
few accounts today of like the witches today, but it's only ever a cat.
Yeah.
Only ever cats. It's never anything else.
And I wondered how much of that is because they've got pets.
Yeah, it's a personal pet. Yeah.
Simply that. Simply
Well,
that.
I've got a black cat. As far as I'm aware, I'm not a witch.
Well, exactly.
Oh, no.
But
Would
he
you
does
say
hang
you
around.
can't-
He does hang around me a lot. But there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but that's the nature of cats, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're clever animals, and they choose which humans they want. They're the masters. We're the slaves.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
very
Yeah.
rare you can get a cat. If you've got a cat that you can tell it what to do, then I would say it's a possibility of being a familiar.
Oh,
But whenever it's dictating what happens, nah.
well, yeah.
I think they got a bad stick though, cats really, didn't they? Because I mean,
Yeah.
you look at
Yeah.
it, it's the nature, isn't it, of them, like the solitary.
Yeah, I'm now worried because my cat actually does what I tell him. So
They
There
can
you
see
go.
the dark, and that got them associated with darkness, and they couldn't.
Hmm.
So they got a bad name, really. When you think about when they come from Egypt, you know, they were God. They were God.
yeah, well,
One of
they,
the,
guardians of the underworld, aren't they?
yes, one of the ways of discovering whether a cat was a familiar was to show it a rat, and if it cuddled up with the rat,
Yeah.
it aligned itself as a familiar. If it attacked and ate or killed the rat, it was a cat. Crazy, isn't it? Really, some
You
of the
still get
things that
loads
they did.
Loads of people today call witches, don't they? If they've got loads of cats, everyone still
Yeah.
calls them a witch.
Yeah, yeah, because that is the main animal that. But they were useful, you see. The thing is, in medieval times, they were useful as a rat catcher.
Yeah,
90% of people had a cat to catch the rat.
but
'Cause
there's
you couldn't keep them
there's still a strange fear about black cats as well, isn't there? A lot of
Yeah.
people don't like having them.
Yeah, well, the saying goes that black and white cats, the different. Right, so if you see a black cat during the day, it's supposed to be bad luck. See one at night, it's fine. Vice versa with white cats.
Yeah, I'm in trouble because I see my cat all the time.
Yeah, but other than your own, obviously. So, yeah, it's surprising. Superstitions abound.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, they still exist in a lot of places.
I see my cat every time he's bloody hungry. That's what I see him.
It's when they come home, isn't it? When they're hungry.
But when you think about it, superstition is woven into our society. A lot of the time, you don't realise that where its roots came from. Like bad luck to walk under a ladder.
Well, it is if someone's up it with a hammer and they drop it. Yeah.
But where did it come from? It came
But,
from superstition.
Yeah, it may be a superstition, but it's actually common sense, isn't it?
Well, it is in some respects, and what have you. I mean, today it don't make a lot of sense because everything's triply checked and everything, isn't it? It's same. I mean, the latest practice for that is always cross on the inside of someone, because you could get run over if you crossed on outside, because pavements were a lot narrower then than they are now. But there's a lot more traffic on the road. And if you've noticed the newest practice, because some divvy did walk into Midlet Road and got run over, the practice has totally changed. If there's roadworks on the pavement, they still cut one at bloody lanes off. They put cones up and lights just for a man oil on pavement these days. It's safety gone barmy because they've got insurance side of it. They've got to cover themselves. It's just gone crazy. Whereas at one time, now they just put an arrow and that's it.
Oh yeah, I mean, even to the point now where you have to stop for pedestrians if they just walk off the curb.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're too busy looking
Yeah.
at their phones. Why?
oh that Brian's worth. He hates that.
Yeah.
Because he shouts like
I mean-
that. Go on, just walk away.
Like, well, if you don't want to die, don't step out in the road. I mean, it's
Isn't it?
the road, it's for traffic. So any
Mhm.
pedestrian crossing it should be paying attention.
Hmm?
So
And
why
don't
they
get me started.
change
Yeah.
it, it's our fault if we run them over. Well, you shouldn't have blinking walked out then, should you?
Yeah. And don't get me started with push bikers. Oh. 2x2. 2x2.
Oh,
Why the hell do they need to ride outside of each other? They're cutting lane down by a hell of a lot. You can literally swing out outside of one, no problem. But when they're sat side by side, you've got to take a lot more at road, and you've got a lot more chance of getting hit head on. It's stupid, but that's government guidelines. And they've got right away. Oh, I don't like it.
no, I don't like it.
Do not like it at all. Does my nothing. But yeah. Any more questions? Any more for any more?
No, but yeah, no.
Ooh, my
Anyone
gosh.
wants to stick one in before we come to the end?
Yeah, we're not far off now. Yeah, familiars. It's a big, wide open subject. But what I want to know, if anybody's listening, if you have a familiar, if you're still using that practice, get in touch. I'd love to know how it works, because it's for me it's a defunct term. I've not come across it in modern times. There's accounts from years gone by. The last account I could find was 17th century. So yeah, it's quite a while ago.
Wow.
But it's worthwhile researching, I think. Same with, if there's any vampires out there, don't come knocking at my door because I'm not letting you in. But but get in touch of it, Tinkerweb. Let's have a
Like come near me. I like garlic.
I mean, what about like familiar spirits? Like, you're like, what about guardian angels and stuff like that?
Well, it's probably very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, they are similar. Again, it's a related subject. Yeah, it's a related subject, I would think. And again, I think possibly some of them, not all of them, some of them were originally familiars, and maybe their guardians or hosts have passed before them. So they become entities in their own right. If anybody's got any literature on that, let us know.
And what about a doppelganger? Because that can't live without you, can it? A doppelganger.
Well, that's an entity, isn't it? That's definitely an entity. Mimics come under that category. Yeah, mimics, doppelgangers, mimics, wannabes. We know a few wannabes.
Well, if you've got a doppelganger, you must be doing something right.
Well, exactly. I've got one, haven't I?
Oh yeah, you've got one.
No, I've got one.
What, Fred Bat?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. You said it. So there you go. No, I think I might smile a bit too much. But yeah, well, it'd be nice to just have a picture taken, just to put everything to bed and prove the point that no, we don't look alike, even though we may be in a similar field. I'd have to talk to Wayne about that, wouldn't I? Because I think his latest venture is with
Yeah,
Mr. Bat. So
it is.
Mm.
Interesting.
Right,
What
we're
would
on 55, so coming to the end anyway. So let's do the readout. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Hey,
okay.
we both got a message at the same time. What happened there?
Right. I've had a couple while we've been on, but
Could it be the same person? Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, but I shall take a look when it's that.
Mine goes off again. That'd be weird.
Is
Uh,
your missus working?
I think it's Bing's network.
Right.
Yep, she is tonight.
Right. Might be all us then saying, come and get me.
Right, so I'll do the readout for the shows.
Okie dokie.
We've got another banner for there. So, we'd like to thank you for coming in and watching us tonight, and do come back next week because we do appreciate you doing the like questions. And if you'd like to watch the other shows on Simply Spooky next week, we have Monday, the Dark Mirror Show, Josh Wayne and Mark. Tuesday, Simply Spooky, which is the Jar of Doom night with different hosts, which I think you and Ian are on this week, aren't you?
We are, aren't we, Mucker?
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
you told me. But
Yeah.
We have Wednesday,
Can't
Simply
remember
Spooky.
what subject. What subject? Can you remember?
it's Can
you
People Be
see-
Haunted?
Be
Yeah.
haunted, yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
We've got
Well, I
Wednesday,
think I'm
Simply Spooky, which is usually with a guest, with Tim. No, it's not. That's Wednesday. With Viv, Dan, and Eric. Thursday is the Weird Room with Tim, Eric, and Dan. Friday's back with Freaky Friday with us. Saturday is Better Physical Insights with William. And Sunday is back here with us at 7 o'clock.
Mhm.
good.
So I think we'll say good night now. See you all next week. And in the
Yes,
week.
thank you for joining us, and have a lovely evening. And don't work too hard tomorrow.
No, don't. No.
Yeah, try not to.
Bye all.
See you
Good
later.
night, everybody.